Well, it's amazing, Colleen, but I was just talking about this yesterday to a bunch of college students and professors, and the professors didn't even know about these effects. But the really bad effect that a lot of birth control has on young women is that when they're on it, they are attracted to men that they wouldn't necessarily be attracted to if they weren't on it. And yeah,
Why does that happen?
well, it causes changes in the hormonal makeup of the brain to where the brain and the body of the woman thinks that they're, you can look at it two ways, like their second half of their cycle, like the
Hmm.
luteal part of the cycle, or pregnancy, they're pregnant. In other words, it shuts down the normal cycle. And in the normal cycle, in the follicular stage, the first part, the first half,
Hmm.
basically, other than the period, the time of the period, after the period is over, there's usually a really sharp increase in sexual desire, for one thing. And um, basically from day 8, if day 1 is the start of the period, and day
Hmm.
5 is your typical end,
Hmm.
so the third day after the end, so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, maybe 14 even, um, women's estrogen levels increase sharply.
Okay.
Normally, this is a normally cycling woman. Okay.
Who's not on birth control? Just
Correct.
your average woman who's not using any kind of birth control.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We'll talk about the normal, and then we'll talk about what birth control
Okay. Yeah.
does to it. So, and not only does her estrogen increase greatly, and I mean when I say greatly, I mean greatly isn't strong enough. It increases by 200 times
Wow.
in that what we call that fertile window,
Hmm.
because women are only fertile for like 5 days, 5 to 6 days, and
Hmm.
those are the days we're talking about. And so estrogen increases by 200 times, and that, in percentage terms, that's 20,000 times. So if you think about that like that, it's just a huge difference. And estrogen is really a sex receptive hormone. Testosterone, which also rises in the woman at this time, but again, compared to the men's amount of testosterone, it's not very much. But it's a sex seeking, hormone.
Okay.
So the natural cycle then is for that to happen, and so between the eighth day and about the 14th day, sexual desire rises sharply, and again, the whole follicular, process of the egg maturing and being released, that all happens. And if sexual intercourse happens somewhere in that time period, and the egg is met by the sperm somewhere along the way, in the I guess in the fallopian tubes, that then pregnancy takes place.
Hmm.
If it doesn't happen, then the second half of the cycle kicks in, and the progesterone rises, estrogen starts dropping, and and the woman goes into a phase of basically going from a really highly desirous stage during the follicular stage to a more of a chilled, relaxing, not very motivated, and especially toward the end,
Hmm.
of the 28 to 30 days. So what birth control does, what hormone birth control does, is it takes that first part, that follicular part, the part that where the estrogen is sharply rising and testosterone is rising, and it just basically flattens it out.
Okay.
And so basically for the whole month, the woman feels like she's in the luteal phase, which is the kind of not motivated, certainly not sexually motivated, and not necessarily motivated to find a man that has high genetic quality. In that in that fertile window, she will have the greatest chance during the month to be interested in alpha male types, the genetically fit guy.
Hmm.
Um, so again, that's that first half, especially again, that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 time period.
Hmm.
And then it fades into the second half. If she were to, have sex with a gentleman at that time, she would probably choose, if she didn't have one,
Hmm.
and if she was fairly, promiscuous, I guess, she would probably choose someone that was more of a trustworthy type of a person, more of a good dad, maybe in the future,
Hmm.
a husband you wouldn't have to necessarily worry about, wandering, that type of thing. So with birth control pills or otherwise,
Hmm.
when you flatten that out, when you take basically that first part out, then you take away her normal desire for looking for a guy that may be more genetically fit, maybe more rough, maybe more daring, that
And
type of thing.
genetically dissimilar to her, I believe, as well. I believe that women
Right.
on birth control tend to be attracted to men more genetically similar versus women who are just naturally cycling are
Right.
more attracted to men that have different genetics because that means that their children are going to have like the best immune system because you're getting two different immune
Yeah.
systems and having the
Yeah.
best of both worlds. So it doesn't seem like a problem that a woman would be more attracted when she's on birth control to a man who is a good dad or very trustworthy.
Mhm.
So what's the problem with that?
Great question. Here's the problem, Colleen, and audience. What's been happening in certain situations, and not always, but women that have this happen to them and go into this kind of altered mental state and
Mhm.
altered attraction state. Let's give you the scenario, the probably the typical scenario. A man and woman in our society today, they're attracted to each other, and maybe thinking of maybe down the road getting married, but they're not saving sex for marriage.
Mhm.
Very typical. They start, and again, they probably, if they're having sex, they start to. She may already be on birth control,
Mhm.
and she may be choosing her this man, on birth control, and be thinking her brain may be thinking like the second half of
Mhm.
the cycle, or if she were pregnant. So she's already in the state you just described. She's more attracted to a man that would be like maybe remind her of her family, or be genetically similar, that type of thing.
Mhm.
And so as they go through this relationship, and she is again on these birth control pills, or she goes on them to keep from getting pregnant because they start having sex.
Mhm.
When they get married, typically they get married, and maybe whatever year or two go down the line, and they decide we want to have children, you know, and so she goes off the birth control pills, and when she does, she finds she's attracted to these other guys, guys that are, more genetically fit, rougher, more masculine, more of the bad guy type of thing, and she's no longer necessarily attracted to her husband, and so when she was on birth control and they were getting together and dating and probably and having sex and that type of thing, she was attracted to him. But then, when they didn't want to have a baby, but when they want to have a baby, and she goes off the birth control, now she's no longer attracted to him. She's attracted to these other guys, maybe the guys at work or whatever.
Mhm.
So it's a bad thing for a marriage, for one thing,
Mhm.
because you don't want the wife to now be attracted to other guys and not her husband.
It seems like for a woman who's naturally cycling, she gets the best of both worlds because
Mhm.
during the first half of her cycle, she's attracted to men who are genetically dissimilar, who are very masculine, manly,
Yeah.
high testosterone levels, I'm guessing.
Right.
Versus, and then as she moves into the second half of her cycle, she can then, if she's dating him, also evaluate him. Would he be a good dad? Would he be a good provider? And kind of both parts of her brain are working in sync to be able to, if you're dating chastely, be able to determine that this gentleman is going to be a good husband and father going down the line.
Mhm.
But a woman who's on birth control loses that first half of, am I actually attracted to him on a biological level, and
Mhm.
only gets to evaluate him on the, is he a good dad, is he a good provider perspective, which again, those aren't bad qualities to be looking for,
Right.
but you need to, I guess, for a good marriage, have the attraction to your spouse as well as
Mhm.
the recognition that they're going to be a good provider and a good dad to your children. Is
Right.
that a good sum
Oh,
up of it?
yeah, it's perfect.
Okay.
Better than I could explain it. It's that chemistry. I mean,
Mhm.
normally it's chemistry, that first half of the cycle, that kind of animal magnetism type of
Mhm.
thing. If the chemistry isn't there, that's a kind of the base of um, why they're attracted to each other, and why they're attracted to each other. That animal chemistry, that pheromonal,
Mhm.
chemistry. That's telling them, if they are highly attracted to each other, that they're going to probably have really healthy babies, as you were
Mhm.
saying, because they are dissimilar enough, as far as their immune systems and other things like that, that the baby that's going to be produced from them is going to have an excellent one, the combination of both of theirs.
Mhm.
So um, that animal magnetism, or that animal attraction, that I guess just really visceral and like physical
Mhm.
attraction, is an important element to it, as you just described.
Mhm.
The other part is important as well, because there's so many young women that end up, all on that side. They're all on all on the.
They're always going after the like very masculine man and
Yeah,
not looking at the good father qualities as well.
yeah, and it's interesting because the research shows that the not all, of course, but the high proportion of masculine, the alpha male types, don't aren't very good at staying married. They aren't
Mhm.
very good at staying true to that one woman. So there's a downside to being too focused on the follicular half,
Mhm.
and the animal part of it, so to speak, just physical attraction. But like you said, you described it really well. I think the combination of the two is what's supposed to happen, because you're supposed to have, maybe initially you're going to have that attraction, that
The
very,
spark, the chemistry.
yeah, chemistry is really, I mean, it literally is chemistry,
Mhm.
because it's pheromonal, so it's things that are going between the two, that they don't perceive it consciously, but
Mhm.
they just feel it,